Well, welcome along on this trip that we take to the extreme western part of the panhandle of Oklahoma. Many people are not aware that in this great nation of ours, this nation America, yes, we have those tracks, those signs, the remains, the fossils that go back millions of years. And if there's any one thing that I would hope that we can accomplish, and the purpose of this is the world that was. Many Christians say, the world that was? What? It's very simple. Any person can look at a road bank, a cutaway, and see the various layers of God's earth as time has gone on. With carbon tests, though it is questioned, still fairly accurate. But the very fact of the ages it takes for the layers to decompose, to be washed away, and also that great eruption, the overthrow of Satan. Well, I didn't know that was in God's Word. Well, it is. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, period. It does not stipulate when. And then in the Hebrew, in verse 2 of that Genesis chapter 1, Tohu Vabohu, the earth became void and without form. God didn't create it that way. He created it to be inhabited, as it is written in Isaiah. And then, we might say, well, what caused that overthrow, that destruction? It's very simple, Satan's rebellion. Peter, in his second book, in chapter 3, stipulates that Christians must be aware of three world ages, cosmos, if you like. The first, not Noah's flood. Noah's flood did not totally, completely destroy the earth. As an example, the dove went forth, brought forth an olive branch. Now, in a simple year-plus period, the olive tree was still in existence. Let's read from our Father's Word what our Father has to say about that world that was and the destruction that He brought upon it. As always, there's only one place that we can find this, and that is from our Father's Word. You'll find it recorded in Jeremiah chapter 4. God has threatened and has mentioned, I will destroy the earth age. And they would not listen, therefore He said, hey, let's pick it up with the 22nd verse so that we pick up God's emotions toward His children. For my people is foolish. They have not known me. Do you know why they don't know Him? They don't study His letter. They are sottish children. You know what that word sottish is in the Hebrew? Stupid. They're stupid children. And when you have the actual facts in archaeology, right in our own nation, like in the panhandle of Oklahoma, to observe, to meditate, to see and experience that world that was, then they are stupid. Don't care, perhaps, foolish, maybe a better word. God said, stupid children. And they have none understanding. They are wise to do evil, or they can plot a lot of little things up, but to do good, they have no knowledge. Unfortunately, that still holds true to this day. I beheld the earth. In other words, God is showing you the earth before that overthrow. And lo, it was without form and void. Void being that word in the Hebrew, tuhu, meaning totally destroyed. He accomplished it. And the heavens, and they had no light. That was a total destruction. I mean, complete. Verse 24. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled. This is when it took place, beloved. And all the hills moved lightly. We know that this earth, the true North Pole and true North, are approximately 90 miles apart. This earth was moved from that perfect axis. That is my opinion. Verse 25, I beheld, and lo, there was no man. I destroyed every last one of them in Noah's flood. We know that on the ark there were 8 Adamic souls. And all the birds of the heavens were fled. He destroyed every bird. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness. There wasn't an olive tree, there wasn't a plant left. And all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord and by his furious anger. Every stick destroyed. For thus hath the Lord said, the whole land shall be desolate, yet will I not make a full end. In other words, he created this earth age, the second earth age, which is for salvation. So be aware that there was an earth age before this. This is why that God's elect, many of them were chosen before the foundations of this cosmos, not the eretz in the Hebrew, the terra firma. The terra firma that we will be observing tracks in. Now, I want to show you the Megasaurus. I want you to note the meat eater. This is the type of dinosaur that we will be observing. Maybe we can move a little closer in. The reason I'm doing this, I want you to see particularly, and I don't know if we can do this from this angle, the shape of this foot. I want you to see the 3 toes. That is the type of track that we will be tracing, and this is the type animal that we were tracking. I want you to know this. I want you to know that these tracks, because of that some quick change, ironization took over, and these tracks in what would have once been sand have become as hard as flint. And it is as though this megasaur had just walked through. I know you're going to enjoy making this trip with us. As I told you before we went, you were going along. It was not going to be one of these professional things that everything is so-so. You're on the trip with us. We want you to see it in the rough. These tracks were discovered about 15 years ago. Some of the bones, that is to say from the megasaur, or it is believed perhaps the megasaur, were discovered during the WPA days when a road was being constructed in this area. When we come to the rock quarry, you will be made aware of that. Our deep regards and thanks go to Leona and Truman for having assisted and sharing their wonderful knowledge near their property of this great exhibit of God's nature from the world that was. How perfect when we can learn from the signs of our Father's placing of tracks and remains for those that have eyes to see and for those that have ears to hear, to observe and not be sottish children, but let His wisdom and the simplicity of His Word be ever present with us. I hope you enjoy it.
We're Truman and Leona Tucker, and we live at 9 or 8 miles north of Kenton, Oklahoma, right in the last corner, in the very corner of the state of Oklahoma. And we're real happy to be out here helping all these folks.
Okay, we thank Truman certainly, as he will be explaining. Because of the wind, we're going to give you the thought that he is expressing. Thank God for our elders that bear information. We thank Truman for this. The reason we're showing you this particular peak is you see the various layers. The lava cap, you see the Dakota, you see the gravel fallout, you see the granite stones. You see all these layers of time. For you see, beloved, very near this place, we have tracks that are millions of years old. So really, time means nothing to God. But when you can see this and know that, go to the top cap there, and know that all the surface, basically, was at that level. And then you see the deterioration as some great catastrophe, upheaval, water, the water of that world that was, as it came down through and raced through these canyons, taking away these layers after layer after layer, until we will be down to that original sand bed, which is called the Dakota Sandstone, in the canyon that we'll be going to soon, you become aware of time, how awesome, how beautiful our Father's creation. When you look at this little mountain, and indeed it's probably 600 or 700 feet high, and certainly you see basically the shape from all views of all areas. We can sit a moment and think and meditate on time, age after age, and layer after layer. And let us always remember this point, that what we're working forward to is knowledge of our Father's creation, but also knowing certainly that in the near future we're going into a new age, as it is promised in that 2 Peter chapter 3, a new age that will be eternal. We will be all-knowing, for Father is there and He will explain all things. But let us not be those sottish children. Let us not be closed-minded, because something washed away the layers. Something brought about the destruction. God's Word tells us what it was. It was the wrath of our God at Satan's rebellion in the world that was, however, being accomplished because of His love for a third of His children. Revelation chapter 12, that were deceived by this Satan. I marvel at the layers of time. May they speak to us as we seek, as we search for that trail through archaeology, the truths of God's Word. How precious. God did not intend that His people be sottish. He certainly did not create us sottish, that's to say stupid. It is stupidity that man brings upon himself for not having eyes opened to realize many things happened here. You can hear the cries of the dinosaur, the scream as the battles continue, as the vegetable eaters attacked by the meat eaters in that age that is now gone. But an age yet to come, time to our Father means nothing. May we look at that time, and may we remember Ecclesiastes, there is nothing new under the sun. Therefore, be aware, dear one, that that has been will be again. How precious our Father's Word. And here we drop from that deterioration into this age. Look at the fields. Look at the cultivation of our pasture, that is to say more correctly, that has been cultivated into this civilization with cattle grazing, irrigated from a stream nearby, electricity, power. And we see man's modern trek as we move that time clock up to this age. Can we make the connection between the two millions of years ago? And rather than the dinosaur, the domestic animals that were created for Adam, the domestic cattle that he named, that man uses to till the soil. That's what flesh man was created for, was to till. Look at the beautiful field. Man has done as God has ordained, but we still must look back. We still must ponder. Modernization changes many things. Modernization oftentimes is ugly compared to that was, but time marches on through this age as we come to that age that will be eternal salvation and with our Father, as we see the modern cattle created by God and man to till the field. Let us strive to understand what it is that man is to do to please his Father. For our Father created all these things for His pleasure. Created this earth, yes, for His pleasure. But beloved, He also created you for His pleasure. Make sure.
Dinosaurs is hollow bone, they claim. And this is a piece of it, and it's got the material of the flesh is partly fossilized. There was tons of this stuff there where this was, and there's some tons of it laying there yet. There's lots of pieces and lots of petrified, agatized wood, big chunks of logs, 2 or 3 feet in diameter. This is part of a mammoth tooth. The sections they claim shed off on one side and grew on the other. And there's just 4 teeth in the head, 2 above and 2 below. And this came from a clay bank down south of Kenton. There is where they dug it out.
Truman, if you could turn these parts right here towards that camera a little bit at an angle, I think that is most fascinating, this cutting edge of those teeth.
Well, you see, they've been ground off. Some of us, he's been eating gravel with that or something.
Sure has. It's just almost like it was removed yesterday, only in this state.
I found one down here in the creek that weighed 23 pounds. It's down there in the museum in Goodville.
Well, that's fascinating.
This is a horse track, and again, it's mineralized with hematite, with iron. He stepped on something organic and some kind of material, leaves or trash or something, and pressed them down into the mud, and it stayed there. Maybe there were other mud, other stuff that is in the bottom of the creek had washed away, but this stuck there and took this mineralization. Any place that there's tracks, there's an oxidation because anything organic took that mineral, that iron oxide.
Wow.
It mineralized fast. Is that?
I believe they've got that. I'll move it over as she hands you another one. Let him get a close-up.
Oh, so I can see it.
That's a dinosaur track. Give me them up there. I'll put them at the same place here. These is the cast of a track. You can see it. But this is an actual dinosaur track. It's in the rock that rock just broke off, and there were several of them tracks along there.
This is an actual rock, and that's a cast.
Yeah.
That is very clear, Truman, very clear.
This was a series of tracks. This broke off on the edge, and there was a series of small tracks in it.
That's great.
Yeah. Now what do we want?
Did you show that one at the vertebrae?
Oh, this one.
Well, yeah. Well, I was going to bring out here of the iron. We mentioned the iron oxide as being in these tracks, and lots of this iron is in Dakota. It can be from the color of this to lighter color yellow. It depends on the percentage of iron. But I've found places where ancient people have polished this stuff. It's just polished just like a mirror. It's just as hard as glass. but it's iron oxide. Some people says it was from a volcano or something of that kind, but I don't think so. It's just merely condensed out of water. It was in water, in solution in the water sometime, and it's when the water will just carry so much mineral till it has to drop it, and when it drops it, it has permeated whatever is there, and this minerals is there, dropped out of the water.
Very, very interesting. All right. Go right ahead.
This is a fossilized plant bulb of some kind. In fact, it's two of them fused together, and there's a solid agate, and it's petrified with silica. Two things that petrify. One is calcium, and the other is one's calcium, and the other is lime. This here is petrified with lime. As you can see the knot hole in that, but it's softer and is more brittle. This here will cut, and there's a piece of one that shows you the pattern of this here thing, of this one.
The pattern.
And it comes, these things wash down in this stream right down here. They come out of.
But you can't get a picture of it. Hold it still. When you can't talk without moving his hands.
It's me too.
Can you talk without moving it?
He can put them both together.
That's fine, though.
That's good.
Okay, go ahead.
Good.
It shows the pattern of the leaf, the inside of this thing here. They saw them up and make tabletops and things of that kind, coffee tables out of it.
That's beautiful.
Back in the corner. I can never lift that one.
Now then,
It's easy, baby. Easy.
You won't get anywhere.
this here, this is shows a vertebra of an. There's a paleontologist here from the Denver Museum, and he said that was a vertebra of a land animal of some kind. But there's a good many teeth and things of that kind in this rock, but it's all different bones. It's come from right up there north where them fellas is taking material out of there for the roads. And
When they did
this comes out.
find things.
This is a buffalo chip, I guess, but you can take a glass and go around over there and find seed in that. And one of the mysteries that's baffled us everybody is how that could be preserved, that natural, and be fossilized.
Same thing. A different animal.
This is apparently feces of some other kind, but this looks very much like because it's something organic. It took that mineralization, and it's.
There was a lot of it. That was too.
Probably was. There's another one of these we found at the same place, and the other fellow took it, but he's got a little different shape, but it had the cavities underneath of it where a tumblebug had hollowed it out.
Wow, that's something. For those of you that might not know what a tumblebug is, here in Texas and in Oklahoma and in this area, that's a bug that follows the buffalo herd and the cattle herd to this day.
This is dinosaur tracks. They're called, I forget what the claim that was, but it goes through there. There's 20 or 25 of those tracks. And there was a paleontologist here a while back said that there was only 2 or 3 places on Earth that they found that many tracks in a sequence. And they're about 16, 18 inches long, them tracks are. And there's 3 different places. There's another line up and down below there, and another line above them. This looks like a bear track, just as narrow a bear track as you can imagine anything. I've seen old bear tracks in the snow. Was the front foot just like that, only wasn't that big. The toes is under this pressure ridge here. And that's a 4-inch pocket knife in there. That track is 2.5 feet long and 2 feet across. This is a dinosaur track. This track is from the Morrison in the bottom of the valley, not in the Dakota, but this track is the largest dinosaur track that I ever found. There's 3 little toes right here, but that's 7 feet and 8 inches from one of them toes to the back of the foot, the back of that heel. That's is a calf track or elk track or something of that kind. It's a bovine, a warm-blooded animal. It's about the size of a yearling steer's track. And again, this is in the Dakota. Evolution claims that Dakota was only 75 to 125 million years old, back when everything had scales and laid eggs, before the age of warm-blooded animals or before the age of mammals. But there's a warm-blooded animal track in it, and there was tracks of man, and this big tracks here of mammoths. All proves that their evolution theories is wrong, because there's plenty of warm-blooded animals as well as man's tracks in it. That Dakota is not as old as they claim it is. It's very young. That's a dinosaur. And there's his head and his neck and the torso. He's off at the hips. The hind quarters, hind legs, and the tail's gone. I figured probably with about half of the length of that was gone. That's about 8 or 9 feet long, that's there. And it's raised up. It's not just an outline. There's a lot of it there that's been flesh, that's mineralized now. And there's pieces of the front leg right in there. You can't see it in that, but you can see it there. It's not right where it belongs, but it's there right close to where the... This is a mammoth track, 8 feet across. There's a fellow there one day with me. He's better than 6 feet tall. And I told him to lay down in that and I'd take his picture. It didn't have any water in it at that time. But he didn't touch neither side of it. Here's the frog of the foot right here in the back of the foot right here. The toes is eroded out right here on this side. But right over here is another track that shows the toes. And this is the toes of that track. This is a 12-inch ruler, and this is the same size track as the other one, probably made with the same foot. There's a pressure ridge pushed up here a couple of feet high, and these toes is about a foot right here. But that shows the toes of an elephant or something of that kind. It was a mammoth is of the elephant species. But again, it's a warm-blooded animal in the Dakota, which evolution says it can't be. But it can be because it is.
All right, we thank Truman and Leona for inviting us into their homes. You know, a man that's reaching the 90-year mark with this knowledge and sharpness is just fascinating. We thank them for having invited us into our home. Now we're going on location. We're going to the actual tracks. And those tracks, how precious God's time. And again, the expertise as we go to that location. And here we are. Notice the hundreds of feet as we have washed away and we're down to the Dakota sand. And this is our wonderful crew that works and continues on as we set up and make ready to film the actual tracks. Again, God's creation and the levels of time say, you're there. As Truman said, it's here, so it's a fact. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to present to you Mr. and Mrs. Truman Tucker. They prefer to be called Leona and Truman. Certainly they have given us a wealth of information. And as Truman at this time explains these dinosaur tracks, you'll hear the sound of the wind, but friend, when you go out in the field, that's what God's nature is about, is the wind, the very spirit itself, ruach in the Hebrew tongue. So we're going to have Truman at this time explain this set of dinosaur tracks. Truman, if you would please, sir. All right, we dub in audio because of the wind. We apologize, but notice the very toe. These are the toe marks left in this Dakota sand. Actually, when the dinosaur walked across this area, he was in an upright position. This track is approximately 12 inches across. It would be one of the smaller animals, but the track is so perfect. I suppose it's one of the better tracks in the U.S. It was sand when it was made, but ironized through some act of God soon after, and it's hard as flint. There are about 28 of these tracks. As the animal walked, is evidently coming out of the sand into a drier portion where the toenails are left in this sand, now solid rock, even pushing up, if you would, the depression because of the weight of this animal. There are more inline tracks in this spot than any other place that is known in the country at this time. There are still layers of soil that were not present. You'll see it in a moment as we go back near the bank, but there are approximately 28 of these tracks. But how awesome the time, for this track is as perfect as though it had been made yesterday. Looking like sand and yet hard as flint. We see God's timetable. We see that God's word is true. The millions of years. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, period. These animals that were on this earth, in that, the millions of years before. Now here you see where the animal walked across this Dakota sand, And notice at the very base of the hill on the other side of the creek bed, we've dug out there, or it's been dug out, where we get the 28 tracks, and they still continue. You would have to move tons and tons of dirt to get down to the base of this, about 28 of them. Notice where we're standing now approximately. He was sinking down into the sand until there basically are depressions, but still in almost every track you can make out the toes. It is sand filtered over this because this is a live creek even today. Kind of a dry weather creek is what we would call it. But the tracks then, as he comes up to more solid ground, as the one we were pointing at, with even the toe marks, the claw marks, bedded, recorded for our purpose today to know and to understand. Truman is reporting to this that it was about 15 years ago, and as to how a man from a university in Colorado came down and made a plastic mold from these tracks, and they're actually, these same tracks are in a museum in this nation at this time. Praise God that these have been preserved, that we can understand the world that was. Okay, now we're going to try to move in a little closer and get you some close-ups on this, whereby you can better see. Here's where the dinosaur. Here's where we dug out, as stated. Notice the tracks. By moving tons and tons of soil, we could have tracked this dinosaur even further. But here come the tracks. You're getting a close-up, and there's where the crew has walked on down to another set of tracks where another dinosaur was converging upon this one. Why? Was it mating? Was it a fight? We'll never know unless we move tons of dirt. But I'm sure by the tracking we could have known. But here we see a close-up of, see the toe mark in this one? Look at that toe mark from this dinosaur, preserved as if he had just walked through. Now, Hoppy tried to wash this one out whereby we could get a better picture, and I'm not sure it helped the contrast all that much, but perhaps you can see what we were up against there in the field, for this is still, as stated, an active creek, and water, of course, going through here. Another almost perfect track. Notice the three toes, how perfect, and even the cleft from the bottom of that foot. Oh, our Father, I'm sure he had these special for those that know of the world that was. And as we move location from this set of tracks down to the next, Sarah helping move equipment. This is quite the logistics are fantastic in the field. We enjoyed doing this.
These tracks is some more. There's another line of dinosaur tracks below this others a while ago. Place here where they was exposed.
All right, here we see the dinosaur that is converging on the set of tracks that we have just moved up from. Maybe a little smaller animal on the same course. Smaller because she was female, or another male, or two females moving in to attack each other. Remember, these were meat eaters, or perhaps just a family on the hunt. But how perfect in this Dakota sandstone, now turned rock, ironized to the point that it is absolutely solid rock. How precious these tracks, molded in time. Again, taking our minds back to that great book of Ecclesiastes, when God says there's nothing new under the sun. It is that we need to understand. And archaeology and those things that God, the signs that he has left for his children to learn by, whereby they are not sottish children.
Okay, the first time we were out here, this Denver man was here, and he and I got speculating. Those tracks were going out here, these tracks were going over there. What happens out there when they met? Because they're in the same layer of rock.
A good thought.
We thought, you know, maybe they had a fight, or maybe they ignored each other. We didn't know.
You can almost look and see it.
Sure,
You
you
sure
can imagine.
You can
I got a great imagination anyway. And so
we asked about digging them out, and they said that some of the rock itself had been dropped off from those they cut off, and that they might not continue. And I said, well, how do you know unless you go and dig it out? But they never did want to dig it out.
Well, it's going to be interesting.
Where them tracks is up there, and some of these right here, there's a paleontologist from Denver come down here with latex rubber, and we put it on 4 or 5 of them tracks, and same up yonder, we put 3 or 4 or 5 of them tracks together. We'd put a bunch of that rubber on there, and then some cloth, and then some rubber, and we had, I think, 4 of the way of them tracks in sequence. When we took that up, they was going to put them in the floor of a museum, but they could take that cast and make just perfect dinosaur tracks in sequence.
Well, that's very, and it would be an excellent exhibition in a museum.
Yeah, it was all right. That rubber and stuff cost $35 a gallon. You put several $100s worth of that stuff on there. But he had to do it in order to get anything that was solid enough to reproduce. We put in a layer of cloth, and then more rubber, and then more cloth, and we had it an inch thick in places, and had a cast that he could. That's about, I don't know, stators 10 feet long and about 3 feet wide.
Well, certainly the cost to preserving something that there is so little record of, and yet, in to a degree, is really very inexpensive compared to the knowledge that is preserved.
And it didn't hurt the tracks either, any. They were
right. It's obvious now.
They were preserved just the same as they would have been.
Well, Truman, again, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity. I understand you're going to take us to one other place, and that's the pit where you and were present when one of the first artifacts, a rib or something of that nature, was discovered in this area. So we're anxious to get there.
All right, and at this point we left the tracks of the dinosaurs, and we're moving to the quarry where bones, remains, fossils shall be found. But we stopped at a very historical place. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the old 101 Ranch. My, what a history she has. Will Rogers, rodeos even to Europe. What a famous ranch. Truman requested that we stop here because he feels that in these huge valleys, that at one time in history, a tremendous amount of water rushed and raged down through these canyons, taking away and washing down, if you would, to the base of the Dakota sand that has even exposed some of these tracks. The interesting fact, we'll be showing you a scene here. We see Tom White there behind Truman and his lovely daughter, that as Sarah, as the crew had gathered, and we stopped. Now we're switching over. You're looking now at a shot that was known as the Robber's Roost, and was quite an outlaw hangout. Truman let us to understand. Back in the old days, you're going to see also in a moment the lava cap, but the water that did come down through this area, as Truman had asked that I reiterate to you, that cleansed. Now here we're moving in. Notice when we get in focus there, the old rock fence. See that rock fence? It originally went all the way across that canyon as a fence to hold cattle, hold horses, etc. And then up that canyon, you come back up again to the lava cap. All this water, this erosion, there's the lava cap, right? The black area right at the top of that lower peak there to the left of your screen. How precious God's Word and how beautiful our nation, as we realize in this one canyon we see the modern world, and yet we drift back into history millions of years as we take this break here on that famous 101 ranch. They're part of the property adjacent to this road. And the minds go back for years as we see history, both at the turn of the century and even back to this time, at this present time. We thank our Father that He has given us these things, that He has allowed us to visit, to understand, and yes, to worship Him for having given us these beautiful signs whereby we can understand His Word even better. Again, don't be sottish, children. Why am I saying that? Keep your eyes open and understand, see the signs that God has given us to ascertain His time, His Spirit as He speaks to us. Our Father, He that created, He that spoke and nothing became everything. And how obvious the signs. You see, the awesome feeling that you have in that Dakota sand, and that dinosaur track, two of them, as they converge either to mate or fight or whatever, hunt. It is as though it was yesterday. We cannot deny the signs that God has left for those children that will use their minds and will understand His Word. Certainly doing this documentary on the world that was both exciting and rewarding and extremely educational. I want to thank Tom White and his lovely daughter for doing the research work on this before this location on scene. All right, here we are at the quarry. Beloved, this bone is a femur, which is to say, it is the bone that goes from the knee to the hip. Now, as you see me near this, I stand 6'5" with my boots on. And I want you to note how far above my head this femur bone, again, the bone and my arm approximately a yard, so that you get an example of the size of this femur bone, again, which would only be a leg bone from the knee up to the hip. They're comparing the actual height of it, almost 7 feet, or a good 7 feet or more, I should say. And we begin to see the size of this animal. This would be considered basically a small compared to one that would leave a 7 and an 8 foot track, both mammoth and dinosaur. We go down into the quarry here where there were 33,500 bones taken from this pit. The University of Oklahoma was notified, as I told you, back in the days of the old WPA, when this road was originally cut through this area. The grader blade struck something, and on analyzing it, it was a near perfect bone fragment. And then the archaeologists were called in, and these bones were removed. It took quite a period of time, a little over a year, many people in the community helping. These bones now are located at the University of Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. We see those that, many of them that came along on the crew, Jilly, Ashley, and Tom's lovely daughter. We see Truman and his lovely wife, Leona. We're trying to guard around him closely to stop the wind from the mic there, but unfortunately this audio was impossible. There was certainly an Oklahoma windstorm the day that we were here. But to know that the water from the valleys and the canyons just above, what happened that this many bones were located in this one place? We see the time erosion. We see these bones washed as even almost driftwood. And here we see Debbie climbing with, that's Jilly or Ashley, You could see the size of that bone compared to the size of that child. It was exciting doing this documentary for you. As I stated, nothing real fancy, and many would say, well, it's not even professional. Well, be that as it may, it was taking you to the world that was and documenting from our own America that this earth has been in existence for many years. May the ministers that swear that this earth is only 6,000 years old, may they not be sottish children. May they search, may they research to know there's got to be an answer for a femur that is over 7 feet in length, found in my native state of Oklahoma. We really enjoyed doing this documentary for you. It's approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon that this is being taken, and we have 500 miles to go to get home to do a live broadcast for you in the next day. So we take this opportunity to thank both Truman and Leona, his lovely wife. Truman approaching that 90 mark before very long, and his lovely wife, both in excellent health and walking through these quarries and rock beds, taking this time and inviting us into their home, sharing the artifacts with us and you. What a lovely couple. And what a record of history and time in these great canyons in which is their home. We just cannot say enough to thank them for giving us of their time and inviting us into their home to make this documentary possible to you. Signs from our Father that the world indeed was. For as Truman would say, it's there. That femur up there that's 7 feet tall is not a vision. It's stark reality. Dinosaurs roamed this great nation in lush foliage before God changed the orbit, basically. This is my opinion, of course. In other words, threw the axis off 90 miles, whereby we have now the jet stream that brings storms. What a beautiful specimen to think that you're only looking from the knee to the hip to see the size and the height of this animal that God created, whereby they ate from this lush vegetation before the overthrow. And do you know something? Because of those bodies of the dinosaur down through the eons, we pump black crude from the ground today to drive engines that literally poison us, yes, but it's nice to have a car to drive. The dinosaur, in part, made that possible along with that rich foliage. Pictured this as the dinosaurs would graze these valleys with lush green foliage and look at the harsh wilderness of a desert land today and know that God has promised that this desert will return again to that lush, beautiful land when He rejuvenates this earth age and takes us into that beautiful age to come, that one that we all look forward to. But let us not lose sight of the eons our Father has gone through to educate His children. And it was His wish that we not be sottish children, but that we give Him pleasure. We hope that we have brought some pleasure to you. Most of all, we hope that you and this wonderful crew that gave of their times and made a long, hard 2-day trip, that they have brought you pleasure as well, and this pleases Him. God bless you. We hope you've enjoyed it. What a wonderful time we had in that period of time of putting this together. Some might say, well, that was rather crude. Well, be that as it may, it was still a lot of fun. The sign that God placed there for us to observe concerning the world that was is a fact. And let us always be realists that deal with facts and those signs as we continue making documentaries concerning this great nation and the world from those things that our Father's Word has has declared and directed that we should be aware of. We really, again, I say, and I'm repeating myself, we enjoy doing this for you. I wish you could have been there, and this is the next best thing. I hope that it has made that world that was seem near you for a time, the awesome feeling of it as we walked in those same tracks. We thank our Father, and we say, God bless you.